Pete, you want to tell them about our great military and how well we did with respect to the bombers and the B-2? We had the pilots here 2 days ago, and they were incredible people. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Truly a historic mission. It demonstrated the skill and courage of the United States military. From those B-2 pilots and families that we had a chance to meet, sir, to the fighter pilots, to the refuelers, to the maintainers, to the air defenders who defended the base. What was demonstrated on the world stage was American military might and capability. And it wasn't just Fordo and Esfahan and Natanz that took notice in Iran. It was the rest of the world, that we have a decisive commander-in-chief willing to use these capabilities, which are the best in the world. As the president pointed out, no one else could have done what America did there on that night. And everyone took notice of that. With the One Big Beautiful Bill, sir, we've got $150 billion additional to invest in Golden Dome and all the other weapons systems and stockpiles and shipbuilding priorities of yours. Another month, another historic recruiting bump. It's not just the Army and the Marine Corps anymore, it's the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force, all historically ahead of where they've ever been. So historic spirit inside the military. We had a chance to be at NATO, Marco and I, and see how the world responds to us saying it's time for you to shoulder the burden and take the lead for your continent. It only happens with President Trump leading, and we're proud to be a part of what's going on at the border, sir, with now a fourth national defense area where we're helping get to that number 0 in securing the border. But that mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, re-established deterrence. It reversed what happened in Afghanistan. You saw the debacle of what Biden allowed to happen in Afghanistan and what that did to our image. President Trump said, with Operation Midnight Hammer, we're reestablishing American leadership and deterrence, and we're proud to be a part of it, sir.
And our so-called enemies were watching. They watched every minute of it. They watched. There was very few people that weren't watching, actually, but they watched every minute. It was a perfect military performance, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, if you compare that to the same country, the hostages from years ago, Jimmy Carter, it was unfortunate for Jimmy Carter. He was a nice man, but with the helicopters going down, the sandstorms, the prisoners, they got captured, then the election and the prisoners and Reagan and all the problems. It was nothing but problems. And that was a failure. And ours was not only the pilots. I mean, those machines flew for 37 straight hours. They didn't stop. They went skedaddle. You know the word skedaddle? It means skedaddle. They dropped the bombs and somebody said, skedaddle. Let's get the hell out of here. And every bomb hit its mark and hit it incredibly. And as you know, the Atomic Energy Commission said it's gone. That place is gone. We had a lot of fake reporting, mostly from CNN, where the scammer writer, a writer for CNN, who should be fired, by the way, she was involved with the 51 fake intelligence agents, if you remember that. She did that story, created a story out of it. She created a story out of the laptop from hell, saying it came from Russia, but it actually came from Hunter Biden's bedroom, or worse. Just a scammer, and she's still at CNN, which is pretty amazing. But we'll ask you a question about her. But they came up with this concept that maybe the attack wasn't that good. Maybe it, and I saw it happen right after the attack. I saw this person on CNN. I like to watch the enemy. You learn from the enemy. And I watch, because you have to know where they're coming from. And I watched her say, Anderson, you know, I'm hearing stories that maybe they didn't hit their target. Maybe it wasn't that good a hit. And they were hearing stories. The next day it was a little more, and the next day a little more. After 3-4 days, she was saying, you know, I don't know. I don't think it was that, except by that time everybody knew it was hit perfectly. The evidence is in the planes. The pilots are their best evidence. But they actually came out of their plane, because they were here the other day, and they said, it was so sad. We did such a good job. We flew into very dangerous airspace. I'll never forget, we were in the Situation Room, and they said they have entered Iranian airspace, and everyone took a deep breath, because they had more missiles pointed at them, but the equipment is so good, it's stealth, way up in the air, and it was stealth, and they went right through that, and they sort of, by the time they found out they were there, they were already gone. That was the word skedaddle, get the hell out of here. But they were right in the most dangerous airspace in the world, and they took those big, beautiful, very fast, they're unbelievable planes. I mean, they become really beautiful works of art. You know, I always thought they sort of were cool, but now they look better than just cool, don't they, huh? But they dropped the loads, and literally they would hit, if you look at this table, from here to there, they had a half a refrigerator door is the way to best explain it. Take a refrigerator door, average size, cut it in half. That was their target. They hit every single one. Then we had 30 missiles, Tomahawk, shot from submarines 300 miles away. Every one of them hit their target. It was a perfect mission. Then they came back, almost 37 hours. Every plane worked perfectly. The mechanics were here too. I said, you got to get the mechanics here. We didn't have any problems. If you remember, they had a lot of problems with the helicopters, but they did fly through a dust storm, which they shouldn't have done. Sometimes you say, let's go back and try it on a nicer day. Dust and sand don't work well with helicopters if you know much about helicopters, but that was a horrible embarrassment to us. Then we had Afghanistan, which I think was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, and we would have gotten out. I was the one that got them down. I would have kept Bagram, the big air base, which right now is controlled by China, one among the most powerful runways in the world, thick with concrete and steel. Anything could land, and right now they were 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind, and every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. You know, it's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, they should have taken every ounce of it. I was taking every ounce. I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, sir, we're better off leaving the equipment. Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying it into Pakistan or India or someplace, or just flying it straight home? It's cheaper. Yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot. Didn't take long to figure that one out. But they left all that equipment, but they left their dignity behind. It was the most embarrassing moment, in my opinion, in the history of our country. Not that we got out. We should have not been there, but that we got out the way we got out, with great embarrassment and death. You had 13 young people. I've gotten to know their families very well, but you had hundreds of people killed that nobody talks about. You had the other side. Many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing. They left from the wrong airport. They should have left from Bagram, because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles of fencing and territory around it. Nobody would be able to get near it, and they left. So, we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting to see it. They're starting to appreciate it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission was a work of art. And I have spoken to some of our perceived, I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies. And they essentially said the same thing, very impressive. There wasn't a thing that we didn't lose an engine. We didn't lose it. They landed and they were cheered. But the sad thing was they were cheered, and one of the pilots said, we were a little concerned because when we got out, we were told that on television they were reporting that we may have missed our targets. Sir, we hit every target. That's what I do for a living. We hit every target. In fact, when the bombs hit, a yellow haze came over the horizon that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. And so I just want to congratulate those pilots. And a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. The media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media.